Alright students, so in this video I'm going to explain you how to solve trigonometric equation by factoring. First, look at this equation. This equation is given in the form of fourth power, correct? Now let's suppose it's written something like this: a to the power of 4 plus 2a squared minus 3 equals to 0. We know if we have a quadratic equation, we can simplify by using factorization method and we can get our answers, correct? But in this case, we have the equation power 4 and this is not possible to apply factorization method. So now what do you do? We will say that, let's suppose, if you remember, we used a method, u method, right? Let u is equals to a to the power of 2 and u squared is equals to a to the power of 4th, right? Because if you will take square on both sides, then it's going to be u squared equals to a to the power of 4. So you will replace in this way, right? In trigonometric equation, we are going to use same method. So what do? You will say that u is equals to sine squared x, okay, and u squared is equals to sine 4th x. Let's replace values here. U squared equals to, sorry, not equal, it's plus 2u minus 3 equals to 0. Now look, it's very clear that you are going to use factorization method, right? Means what do you add to or subtract to get the middle term, which is 2, and what do you multiply two numbers? You will get the third term, which is negative 3, right? So we are going to think two numbers, let's say 3 and minus 1. 3 and minus 1 is 2, which is a middle term, correct? Now 3 times minus 1 is negative 3, correct? Which is the third term, correct? It means our pairs are 3 and negative 1. Alright, so I'm going to erase these two. This was, we were just making the pairs. Now you have u squared. Oh no, you don't need to write down u anymore. You will just write it down, u plus 3 and u minus 1 equals to 0. These were the two pairs. Now let's bring back the value of u that we supposed. It was sine squared x plus 3 and sine squared x minus 1 equals to 0. Here we will use zero order property. We will write it on sine squared x plus 3 equals to 0. Sine squared x minus 1 equals to 0. Clear? Now you will find the sine squared values. I will write it on sine squared x equals to negative 3. Here you are going to write down sine squared x equals to 1. Take square root on both sides. You will get sine x equals to square root of 1 and then plus minus, because whenever you take square root you have to write down plus minus value. If you're writing square root 1 or not, it's the same thing, so you write it down sine x equals to 1 and sine x equals to negative 1. If you find the inverse of it, it's going to be x equals to x1 is 90. I mean, I will write down properly. You have to take square inverse of it, so sine inverse 1, and then right here is x equals to sine inverse negative 1. This answer is 90. This answer is 270. These two are the values on x-axis and y-axis. I mean, these two values are on y-axis, so you don't have to calculate the nth values. Alright, look at this value. If you take square root on both sides, now square root of -3 is not possible through calculator, but we know this is an imaginary number, right? So here we don't need to continue our question, we will just stop here. Okay, so our answers are x equals to 90 and 270. If you want to write in radian, then x equals to pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. Okay, so now we have this question, -2 sine x equals to negative sine x cos x. Okay, so to continue for the next step, what do? You will bring sine x values on one side. It's going to be -2 sine x plus sine x cos x equals to 0, correct? Now in these two terms, this one and this one, there are only two terms, correct? In these two terms, sine x is a common factor, so I will take sine x as a common factor, -2, you will left with -2 plus cos x equals to 0. Now here you can apply zero order property. It's going to be sine x equals to 0, and the other one is -2 plus cos x equals to 0. This will become cos x equals to 2. Okay, now we are going to find, so here if you will take the cos inverse of this value, x equals to cos inverse of 2, you will get an error, so means you don't have this value. Now right here, x equals to sine inverse of 0. Okay, now sine inverse of 0, they will give you x will be equals to 0. Okay, now look at this. If you see the graph, then sine is 0 is at this point and at this point. Okay, so values of sine, which like sine x equals to 0, to get the values of x, proper values of x, then x is equals to 0 and also at 180. If you want to write down in radian form, then 0 and pi. Now for this question, we are writing the sine x values, means x value not in nth form, because the interval is only from 0 to 2 pi, and from 0 to 2 pi the values of x or sine x is 0 at only at 0 and pi. If they will say like what about infinite interval, then it will be 0, pi, 2 pi, then 3 pi, then 4 pi, correct? And if you want to write it down in the nth form, then it is going to be x equals to n pi, which n is equals to 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that will be the nth form. But as you can see that in this question we are doing only this interval, then our answer is only this, x equals to 0, x equals to 180. Okay, so next we have this question. Again, to simplify this question, what do is you combine the terms which are the same, so like cot x and cot x. So what do? I will divide with cot x on both sides, correct? So wait a minute, it's going to be divided by cot x here and divided by cot x on this side. Cot x and cot x cancel, cot x and cot x also cancel here. You have 4 sine squared x. Now you have squared, we will take square root on both sides. We will have sine x equals to plus minus 2 because we took square root on both sides, so you will get plus and minus. So if you will get sine equals to plus minus 2, and if you will try to find the values of x in this way, sine inverse plus minus 2, you can check through the calculator, you will get an error. This will be the wrong side that you will do. Okay, so I did this question in this way, that if you will try to do a wrong algebraic way, you could be ended up having a wrong answer. Then what you're supposed to do is you will simplify it in the other way around. Instead of dividing cot x on both sides, what do? I will just use the different strategy of algebraic way, because you cannot cancel out one trigonometric function. So you will do it 4 cot x is equals to cot x sine x. What do is I will take this on the right side term on to the left side. It's going to be 4 cot x minus cot x sine squared x equals to 0. Okay, now cot x is a common factor. You have cot x and you're left with 4 minus sine squared x equals to 0, and cot x equals to 0, and equals to 4 minus sine squared x equals to 0, and then sine squared x equals to 0. And it's the same thing that we did it right here, correct? This will be cancelled out, you won't get anything. Now what do you have? You have cot x, right? And the inverse of cot x I explained you before, like for cot, secant and cosecant value, what do? Here you will write it down, cot inverse 0. Okay, and again finding the cot inverse value through calculator will not be possible, but we know the identity that cos x over sine x is equals to 0. Okay, now if you replace x with angle 0, you will get answer 0, and if you will replace angle you will get undefined value. But if you will replace the value of x equals to 90, you will get your answer correct, which is equals to 0, right? So look at this, cos 90 over sine 90. Cos 90 is 0, sine 90 is 1, so 0 equals to 0. So this satisfies this condition. Okay, so cot x is 0 when x is equals to 90, and what is the other value of x when it's 1, and the other value of x at 1 is 270. So these are the two x values when cot x is equals to 0.